Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This video is designed to address a couple of things that have been mentioned over and over again since the early days of the success of this channel. Ever since I started doing the homemade MREs and then evolved into doing dehydrated meals and things like that, one of the things that I consistently get a lot of comments and questions about is freeze drying. Of course, freeze drying is not really a technology that is available to just anybody. It's got expensive and bulky equipment, and it's just not something that's available to just anyone to get involved in. But due to some good timing and the success of this channel, it afforded me the ability to finally buy a freeze dryer last year. And while I've done a little bit of like YouTube shorts and things like that about freeze drying, I haven't done any full-length content about it. So this video is going to do that. Also, another thing that I got a lot when I started doing the homemade MREs was people wanting to see me do breakfast. Now, the problem is breakfast items are not something that's readily available in the prepared shelf-stable food section. So it put me in a position of being very limited on being able to do that. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to do freeze drying and breakfast. I'm going to try a variety of different things to see what freeze dries well and what reconstitutes well in order to make a viable breakfast. So over the course of the last week and a half, I have been hard at work on creating the stuff that I'm going to use for this video. This has been a long process in the making. This video has taken me hours upon hours to make it happen. So I hope you appreciate it. And if you do, be sure and like the video because my goodness, this one took a lot out of me. So let me show you guys what I've prepared for us to try. Now, the reason I took the approach I did with this video is not everything out there is going to be something that you can turn into a freeze-dried, reconstitutable meal. And I wasn't really sure which things would work and which wouldn't. So I just made a bunch of stuff. So let me show you what all I did. And I want to tell you a little bit about the preparation of some of these things. And then we're going to reconstitute them and taste them. So let's start with that old staple. Scrambled eggs. I just whipped up a couple of eggs and threw them into a skillet just to make a regular old, good old-fashioned scrambled eggs. Now, one of the things that you got to keep in mind when you're doing freeze-dried scrambled eggs is that there's a couple of issues with them. Typically, when people make freeze-dried eggs, they freeze-dry raw eggs, turn them into a powder that becomes instant eggs. When you're doing cooked eggs, you're gonna run into some problems. But some of those, I hear, can be remedied, and we're gonna try that out and see how that goes for this video. Now, when you're cooking scrambled eggs, you wanna leave them a little bit on the undercooked side, because once we add our heat to this, it's gonna continue to cook the eggs, and the longer the eggs have to cook, the more you're prone to run into things like getting rubbery or just overdone. So we're going to do some scrambled eggs to see how that works out. Next, I wanted to try something a little more on the fancy side. So when it came to eggs, I decided, let's do an omelet. Now, I didn't want to start doing a bunch of different kinds of meat in the omelet because also in this video, we're going to test out some meats. So what I did was made a mushroom omelet. Now, I didn't do this like a traditional omelet. I made it more like kind of a frittata. First thing I did was I sauteed up a bunch of raw mushrooms. And I just used a cooking spray instead of oil because I wanted to minimize the amount of fat that I introduced into this recipe. Because as we've discussed before, even during freeze drying, fat is the enemy. Every little bit of fat shortens the life of that product once it's created. So once I sauteed up the mushrooms, I created my omelet by cracking 6 eggs into a blender. Into that, I added a little bit of salt and pepper and some smoked paprika just for a little different flavor. Threw in a little bit of cheese and some water. The reason I'm adding water into this is because the water adds an extra airiness to this mix, which during the cooking process opens up the pores in the eggs a little bit and makes them more airy and less bound together. So then I poured this up, I chopped up and added my mushrooms, and then I put it in the oven in a water bath. The water bath is to help it keep from overcooking around the edges and to be a little bit more evenly cooked. Once it was done, I took it out, cut it into 4 pieces, and I put 3 of them into Mylar bags and vacuum sealed them. What was left, I ate right then. Because for one, I was hungry. And on the other hand, I also wanted to make sure I had a scope of reference for how this thing should taste. Next up, I did some meats. I did some good old sausage links. I just took regular uncooked sausage links and put them in a skillet and started cooking them. Now, when I do sausage links, I'll start out by cooking them in water. mostly just so they cook all the way through before I start browning them on the outside. A lot of times sausage links will end up burned because you're trying to cook them all the way through and the outside wants to cook really fast. Part of the reason for that is they're very fatty. Those oils start to burn very quickly. Then after I got them cooked up, I put them in the freeze dryer and let it do its thing. After that, I put them in a Mylar bag, vacuum sealed it, and now we have our shelf-stable sausage links. I will say this about the sausage links. These produced a lot of residual fat that was left on the tray in the freeze dryer. So I think if I were gonna do this for something that I wanted to keep around a little longer, I would probably use turkey sausage, something with a little less fat in it, because these right here are not gonna last. I probably wouldn't trust these for more than about a month sitting on the shelf, just because of the amount of fat that's in there. Then of course I did some sausage patties. These didn't cook up to be quite as fatty, but they were also already pre-cooked. So all I really had to do was put them in, brown them just a little bit, and then get them into the freeze dryer. Then into the Mylar bag, into the vacuum sealer, and now we have shelf-stable sausage patties. The great thing about these is I think these are gonna reconstitute really good. They're gonna be kind of like just putting hamburgers into boiling water, you know, the way they used to serve them at school. So I'm anxious to see how those turn out. These next items were something I just happened to stumble across while I was shopping for the other stuff for this, and I knew I was gonna have to have it. I grabbed some biscuit cut ham slices. Now I don't know what to expect from these. I don't know how ham is gonna reconstitute, but we're gonna find out. I just put these straight into the freeze dryer, didn't have to do anything to them, then put them in the packaging. There we go. And the last item was kind of a last minute thought. I wanted to do something really unique, and I was struggling with coming up with something that would be really cool to do for this video. And then I came across a can of corned beef hash. So I popped that thing open and I threw it in a skillet because corned beef hash straight out of the can is kind of funky looking and smelling. It's also very wet. So I wanted to brown it up a little bit and make sure that I didn't just have this weird mushy mess. I wanted something with maybe a little crunch and a little edge to it. So after I cooked up the corned beef hash, we threw it in the freeze dryer, bagged it up, vacuum sealed it, and now we have our shelf-stable corned beef hash. This one I'm excited about because I really want to see how it comes back, because this has a lot of potential. This is the most complete, like breakfasty meal kind of thing. I can see just taking some of this on the trail and using that as a meal. So now let's explore how to best reconstitute these things in order to make them as best as we can. Of course, most of this is just gonna require us adding some boiling water into it. So let's get some water going. So recently I was watching another YouTuber and I honestly cannot remember who it was. So I'm sorry I can't give the proper shout out, but they were talking about reconstituting eggs and the fact that they tend to come back rubbery. The reason for that is that most people reconstitute their eggs by pouring boiling water on them. The issue with that is that when the eggs are freeze dried and you pour that boiling water on them, it causes the proteins in the eggs to immediately kind of seize up and connect to one another. And that's why you end up with rubbery eggs. We're gonna try that with one of these things, and then we're gonna try another trick. She suggested using cold water or cold milk. So what you do is you just start by pouring cold milk and just let your eggs sit for a little bit and absorb that milk. Let's do that real quick. I stole my wife's evaporated milk out of the fridge. She uses this for her coffee, so hopefully she's got more for tomorrow morning. And I'm gonna try this with the scrambled eggs, just to kind of see what we end up with, because this is going to be the easiest way to determine if this is something that's going to work. Let's check on the eggs inside. Have a look at that. There it is. It's just a big clump of eggs. So I'm just going to add some of this cold milk in here, and then we're going to seal it up and let it reconstitute while we do some of this other stuff. Let's zip that bag back up. And then I'm going to set this bag on its side like this so that the milk and the eggs can get to know each other. All right, so our water is boiling. Let's get it into some of these other things and see how these turn out. I'm gonna start with this corned beef hash because this is probably gonna take the longest. Now, if you've been here for a minute, you guys know me by now. Normally I would do this by making my own corned beef hash, but as long as this process was taking, I really just needed to get it done. So that's why I decided to go with the canned corned beef hash. Now, I do not know what to expect. I'm managing my expectations with this because I don't expect a whole lot, but I do hope it turns out at least edible. So let's get some water in here. Don't want to do too much. It smells pretty good. Stir that up. Zip this up and set it aside. Next up, we're going to do the mushroom omelet, and I'm going to do this by adding boiling water to it. And the reason I'm doing that is that because I already ate some of this recently, I know how it should taste. What I want to see is how it ends up tasting by doing it this way. Because if I'm going to add the extra time and process of soaking in cold water and then heating up the eggs, I want to make sure it's worth the effort. Let's get our hot water in here. Not a whole lot. Zip it up. Let's lay this one on its side and let that warm up. Next up, let's do these sausage links. I really hope these turn out good. Sausage links are my preference when it comes to breakfast sausage, so I'm really hoping this works. Reach in here and you kind of see how they turned out. They're very shriveled up. They've got a lot of like bubbly crust on the outside from the fat. They do smell good though. Now the great thing about something like this is we don't have to worry about overwatering them at all. In fact, we want to add more than we need just to make sure they reconstitute properly. And the reason we don't have to worry about it is because this is a meat product, it's only going to absorb what it needs. It's not going to turn to mush or soup. We're just going to pour off whatever water we don't need. Next up, let's do our ham slices. By the way, if you see flies buzzing around me, we're dealing with an issue in the studio right now. I think I left something in my trash can that had a little bit of food in it following one of my videos recently. And I came out the other day and there was a bunch of flies in here. So I've been going through the process of trying to get rid of them. So you may see them buzzing me occasionally because there's still a handful of them left. So here's our ham slices. They are so incredibly thin and light. They do smell good though. Get a little bit of smokiness to them. So let's add some water in here. Zip those up. And last but not least, our sausage patties. These are the ones I'm particularly excited about because I feel like this is going to work. Let's get our hot water in there. Once again, we're going to put an abundant amount in there because these are just going to soak in that. And then we're going to discard what we don't need. All right, so now the only thing we have really left to do is we need to warm up those scrambled eggs. I can feel through the package. They are absolutely absorbing that milk. Let's check on them. Yep, those are doing great, but I think they need a little more milk. All right, so I added a little bit more milk. I'm going to turn it to the other side and let it sit for a minute. So let's check on some of our other stuff. Corned beef hash. I think I might have added too much water. No, actually I didn't. It's looking really good in there, you know, as far as canned corned beef hash. But I'm going to zip it back up and let it finish because I want to make sure everything really gets good and reconstituted. Potatoes, that corned beef, everything needs to be just right. Our mushroom omelet feels like it's doing really well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take our scrambled eggs and I'm going to drop them into the fire maple cooker so that it can be warming up and heating up these eggs now that they have reconstituted. And since our water in there is already hot, we're just going to do this. Fold that down, set our lid on top, and I'll fold that over so that it holds it in place. We'll give that a few minutes to warm up. So I think the thing that's going to heat up fastest is going to be our ham slices. I'm going to get in here and see how these are doing. Oh yeah, those look exactly like they did when they went in. Look at this. Can you see it? As I dump it out on the floor, let me get one out. It has surprised me. They came back so perfectly. They look just like they did going into the freeze dryer. And they smell amazing. What do you think? Should I try one? What the heck? Bon appetit. Those taste great. They're a little on the chewy side, but not offensively so. If you eat things like that a lot, you might notice it. Otherwise, you would probably just eat that and not think twice about it. And after it sits in there a little while longer, that may not even be an issue. Let's see how our sausage links look. Those are looking pretty good, but I can tell they're not quite done yet. So we're gonna leave those in there a little longer. All right, so give me a few minutes to let these things soak and properly reconstitute. Then I'm gonna plate them up and bring you guys back in and we're going to see how everything turned out and what my thoughts are on the cooking process and the viability of each of these items as a freeze-dried breakfast meal. Stick around, we'll be right back. All right, it's been about 15 minutes. It's time to plate this stuff up and see what we ended up with. I really want to start with some of this corned beef hash. Looks like it came back just like you want it to. Now, one thing about this corned beef hash is if you're at camp and you reconstitute this, you can always throw it in a skillet and let it brown up really good. I mean, this is your food. Eat it the way you want it. There we go. Let's throw on a couple ham slices. A couple of sausage patties. Those look really good. Look at that. They are breaking apart though. That's interesting. It seems that the reconstituting process breaks down the integrity of these things. Sausage links. That is one ugly looking sausage link right there. These are feeling a little on the hard side, so I'm starting to think that may not be a good one. Let's get out our mushroom omelet. Look at that. That turned out great. And then finally, our scrambled eggs reconstituted with milk. Let's get those out. Those look pretty good. There we have it. There's our breakfast plate. Look at that. There's breakfast right there. That looks like a plate of happiness, but just because it looks good doesn't mean a thing. We got to give this a try and see how these things worked out. I'm going to start with the ham because we've already tasted it partway through the process. So let's get another bite of that. That ham is great. That worked out so well. Did not expect that to be that good. Let's get a bite of our sausage patty and see how that turned out. Those turned out a little bit crunchy in the middle. There's some ingredient in there that didn't want to come back. I'm not sure what it is, but I could taste that it was like scattered throughout the sausage. It did not want to play. Now, I do think that if we were to put these in boiling water and just let them boil for a little while, they would come back better. I think it's going to have to be super hot boiling water, and it's going to have to maintain for a little bit. All right, let me try some of these eggs. First off, I'm going to try my mushroom omelet. See what we've got there. That tastes phenomenal. I can say that the texture is not perfect. This is not something that you're going to put in front of somebody and trick them into thinking it's anything else but a reconstituted freeze-dried omelet. But the taste is spectacular. The mushrooms did very well in the reconstituting process. Those were really good. Let's try one of these sausage links. You know, I can already tell that's not going to work. I can't even squish that. I'm just going to bite a little bit off of the end of it. Nope. Completely dry, not even worth eating. Those did not work. I'm not sure where the disconnect is with that. I figured those would absorb water very well. Maybe they were overcooked to start with. Don't know. But I do know that's not a winner. Let's get after some of these scrambled eggs. These are the ones that we reconstituted in cold milk and then heated them after they were reconstituted. We're going to see if this creates a less rubbery texture from these eggs and what we end up with. Down the hatch. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. That evaporated milk brings a whole other level of flavor to these things that I didn't think about when I put it in there. If you were using regular milk, it probably wouldn't do that, but it gives a certain level of almost a sweetness to it. And it's not sweetened condensed milk, it's evaporated milk, but it definitely gives a little bit of a different palate to that, but I don't dislike it. They have a little bit smoother texture than the omelet does. Part of that could be it's a different cooking process. Part of it could be the difference in using cold and hot to reconstitute. I don't know, but it works. Both of those are great options. I would totally do either one of those again. But now, the final test, how did this canned corned beef hash that was fried up in a skillet and then freeze-dried turn out? The texture looks and feels good on the fork. I'm not finding any weirdness to the way it picks up, but let's give it a taste. Here we go. That is very rich. I can taste the fact that it was browned before it was freeze-dried. I absolutely recommend doing that if you're going to try this. Do not just put it straight from the can into the freeze dryer. Brown it up first, or at least make sure that you're prepared to brown it once you get to camp. That browning process just adds a whole other level of flavor to this. That's good stuff. It's good stuff if you like canned corned beef hash, but it's not hideous by any means. But I do want to try some scrambled eggs with that corned beef hash, because that's how I'd be eating it at home. So there we go. That works. of everything on this plate that I would do again. Both types of eggs, the baked omelet or frittata or whatever you want to call it, the scrambled eggs reconstituted with milk, the ham slices, and that corned beef hash. The things that I would definitely never do again, those sausage links, which is a shame because those are my favorite. And I probably wouldn't do the sausage patties again. I might try a different kind to see if maybe there's different ingredients, because I'm not sure what it is in there that was so resistant to the reconstituting process, but I could tell it was a single ingredient that just was not wanting to cooperate. I might also try it with turkey sausage, see if I got a different result. If you like this and you'd like to see me try again with some other items, please leave me a comment down below. Tell me the things that you would like to see me try to do meals like this. I'm doing this so I can see, can I make my own camp meals instead of having to go out and pay 10 bucks a pop for Mountain House for a single item? So if you have ideas for different things to try and see if they're viable, let me know about it. I'd love to hear your suggestions. Also, while you're at it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, blah, 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 ring the notification bell, and feed the algorithm by leaving a comment. Whether it's to tell me what you thought about this, or give me other ideas, or just to say hi, how you doing? Because I love doing stuff like this. And like I said, it was a lot of work the last week and a half, but it was totally worth it because I think this may save people a lot of time and money when it comes to trying to freeze dry things. I'm working on another idea for a very different approach to a freeze drying video. So that'll probably be coming up in a couple of weeks. I've got another homemade MRE video coming up that's going to be really weird. And then I'm out of ideas. So I got to think of some stuff. Y'all help me out. So I hope you guys enjoyed that very different approach to doing ration meals and freeze-dried content. Like I said, even though it was a lot of work, this one was fun. I try to keep this stuff as upfront and honest as possible. So if it's a disaster, y'all are going to see that it was a disaster. Because the last thing in the world I want is for y'all to go out and try something and it turns out to be awful. So keep coming around and I'll keep bringing this content. Now that the intended content is over, I need to let you guys know about something. I didn't want to say anything about this at the beginning of the video because I didn't want to bring down the mood. I told you guys a few weeks ago about the health crisis involving my dad. About halfway through shooting the cooking content of this video, I received word that he passed away. Fortunately, over the last few weeks, I've been able to make some whirlwind trips up to spend time with the family. So I had the chance to be with him a few times up until a few days before it happened. The family's preparing for a road trip to go attend the funeral. And once that's in the past, we'll get back to having everything on track with this channel. Thank you all for your words of support and kindness through this whole process, and for being patient with me as I've had to slow down content creation here. I got a couple things I need to shoot before we leave town so that we can keep things rolling without any interference. I do appreciate the offers to take some time off, but unfortunately, when you're doing something like YouTube, when you take too much time off, YouTube forgets about you. And I don't mean you, the audience, I mean YouTube. It's really hard to recover from. Last year when I took some time off for Christmas, I came back a couple of weeks later and the algorithm had crashed. My lack of production of content cost me dearly. So I am still in the process of trying to catch up from that. So please understand that while I am here during all of this that's going on, it's not that I'm not dealing with it. It's that there are other things I have to keep going if I want to be able to keep doing this. This channel keeps me motivated and it keeps me sane, relatively. So I'm going to do everything I can to keep making it work. Big thanks to you guys. And until the next one, prepare for the world that you live in, not the one you wish existed. We'll see you around.